Welcome to Disruptive Successor, a show for next generation leaders in family businesses and entrepreneurs who want to disrupt the status quo and take their existing business to a whole new level. We all know that what got us here isn't going to get us there. This show will provide inspiration, advice, and resources to help you create massive impact. This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Hi, it's Jonathan Goldhill, and welcome back to another episode of the Disruptive Successor Show. I have with me Justin Breen, who is a journalist turned entrepreneur. He's the CEO of the PR firm Brepic Communications and global connectivity platform Brepic Network, and author of the #1 international best-selling book, Epic Business. He is an extremely active member of Strategic Coach 10X and Abundance 360 Summit, and he has an incredible global network of visionaries and exceptional businesses. His next book, Epic Life, will launch in summer 2022. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Yeah, it's great to connect. I'll be interested to see how our Kolbes match up and where we have really good conversations based on that and many other things.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you might remember my Kolbe score better than I do, since it's something you work with. And that's a big part of Strategic Coach. I know that got incorporated by Entrepreneurial Operating System. They put that in place, and Gino Wickman's a big believer. And let's start with telling us a little bit of, we'll talk about that in a moment, but tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today, so people get a feel for you.
Yeah, I'm a dad who happens to be an entrepreneur. I'm not an entrepreneur who happens to be a dad. I'm not a business owner. There's fundamental differences between all three. But no, I mean, I started my entrepreneurial journey about 5 years ago with zero business background. Now I run 2 global companies that only partner with top people on the planet, or the ones who will make the investment to become those people. So I'm just 100% simplifier, living in my zone of genius and spending time with my family.
Very interesting. So I took from your LinkedIn profile that you're the connecting superhero for every visionary, investment, and abundant mindset entrepreneur who shares their stories in the with the world. So tell us about some of these people. Maybe what's an ideal type of person you like to work with, and why have you chosen a path like this?
There's a good book that I'm reading. It's called Hero on a Mission. It's a New York Times bestseller, I think. Donald Miller wrote it. And you read a lot. I read a lot. Lifelong learner. And one of the passages is in the book is meaning is not an idea to be agreed with. It is a feeling you get when you live as a hero on a mission, and it cannot be experienced without taking action and living into a story. I started my entrepreneurial journey 5 years ago after my job salary was cut in half, couldn't find a job. So with zero business background, I reached out to 5,000 people to find my first 5 clients. So 1 out of 1,000 said yes, while I was working full time and half the salary. So now I have 2 global companies. The second one is with a partner who's in California. I've met him 1 time in person. I'm in Chicago. But I think it all comes back to taking action. Overthinkers are underdoers. Overanalysis takes away all your energy. And so I'm the opposite of that. I don't talk a lot unless I'm in one of these type of situations. It's all action. just taking action and then doing something and then learning from that. That's the only way you can really learn and find any meaning in life, is by taking action. So I just keep taking action and making bigger and bigger investments.
So, one of the things I've tried to get people engaged and interested in is taking assessments and getting to know themselves better. I've been using DISC, and that's been the primary assessment I've been running for probably the last 15 or 20 years. You're a big believer in Kolbe.
Yeah.
You have on your subtitle in your name, it's 8671 Kolbe.
Yep.
Tell us what the Kolbe assessment does, measures, and what the significance of an 8671 is to the world.
Yeah, so you're a 7 fact finder, so that makes perfect sense. That's a good 7 fact finder.
You're right.
Yeah, well, so the only thing I write down before I meet someone is I write 2 things: their name, so I remember that, and then their Kolbe score. Because I immediately know who I'm talking to. Kolbe is not your personality. I don't care what someone's personality is. I want to know how their brain works, how they take action. And so I have a unicorn score. I've never met another 8671. So that means I'm an 8 fact finder. 10 is the highest. So that's really high. 6 follow through, which for people like us, that's incredibly high. Most of the folks are 3 or lower.
Right. That mine was a 3. Exactly. Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So people with lower follow through, if they don't hire a bunch of people, nothing will ever get done. So that's ADD diagnosed or undiagnosed. And ADD is not a disorder, by the way. It's a sign of genius. So
I represent that. I represent that statement.
Well,
Justin.
Right. So most of the people I talk to have ADD or diagnosed. Right. Yeah. So
right.
What I've learned in this whole process is like I know the answer to the question before they're even asked, because I talk to enough people like you, and I see the same patterns over and over. And I see the patterns, and then more importantly, like I said before, I take action. I don't overthink it. I do it. But
yep.
So I have a 7 quick start, which is I have found 7 quick start. What I have seen in 5 years as an entrepreneur is the dividing line between people that actually do something and then people that talk and just they take forever to make a decision. And for me, that it just doesn't work into my life. Like people that talk without taking action, it's a pointless conversation to me, because that takes time away from me and my family, which again, I'm a dad who happens to be an entrepreneur. And then the 1, you're a 3 implementer. Implementer in this case is like using your hands to do something, drawing or building something. Or I'm a 1. Like I would be a negative 300. Like I still don't know how to hold a pencil right. I can barely tie my shoes. But my score is very rare, because most entrepreneurs at the highest level have very high quick start and very low follow through. So they're all over the place. I have high quick start and high follow through. So I say it, do it, say it, do it. It gets done. Doesn't get forgotten about or handed off to 40 people. It just gets executed.
And have you done other assessments like DISC? And
oh yeah. So yeah, it fascinates me with DISC, because you're a high SC. I think you're the only one in 5 years that I've talked to. I mean, most of the people I talk to are very high Ds with some odd, because there's no thinking, or I don't even know what the S or C stand for. I have no idea.
Steadiness, conscientiousness, compliance, like rule driven.
No.
So, yeah.
That's the opposite. That's the opposite of most of the people. So I'm the highest D on DISC that you can imagine. Strength finders, Gallup Clifton strength finders. Most of the folks I talk to are ideator futurists. So they're living off in future land, but they have some mix of activator, maximizer, achiever. So they're often future land, but they'll actually do something about it now, making investment. I'm almost dead last in ideation, very low in futuristic, but if I hear a good idea, my top 3 are activate, maximize, achieve. So immediate result. Immediate high D into action. And then the other one that I put up there, I'm guessing you're a 1 something in print. So 1, the print is your unconscious motivators. 1 is to have everything be perfect and right, which is the opposite of everything. I don't need anything to be perfect, and I don't need anything to be right. I just do it. And so I'm a high perfectionist. Absolutely. Yeah, right. So in entrepreneur life, that's not how this world is for the most part. I mean, it doesn't work like that. So, I mean, I guess it could sometimes, but you can't learn anything unless you take action. So the way I look at it is everything can't be perfect and right unless you take action to learn what's actually wrong. So it's a chicken before the egg thing, and I'll take action to find out what happens. But I'm an 8-3 print. So 8 is to be strong and self-reliant, and 3 is to succeed and achieve. So there's no overthinking anything. There's no feeling anything. There's just go, 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 go. And most of the top entrepreneurs in Strategic Coach, there's a free zone program, which is $50K a year. I'll be joining that 2023. So most of the folks are 8-3 or 3-8 prints like me in that, because that's why you would be in a program like that. You wouldn't overthink anything. You just make the investment.
Gotcha. All right. So I'm going to don my growth coach hat, which is how I got started in coaching, switching from consulting. Growth coach was pretty much developed by two people, one who was doing group business coaching. The other was a serial franchise entrepreneur who sat in on the strategic coach program.
Yep.
And by the second or third session, he was just counting the heads and the dollars that were being made in group coaching. And he thought, this is a brilliant concept. I'm going to turn this into a franchise. And so I became one of their 7th franchisee. But tell everyone what strategic coach is a little bit about, and why you got involved in it.
Yeah. So if I'm not the dumbest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. And most of the folks in strategic coach are not, certainly at the level I'm at, they're not business owners. They're just full entrepreneurs. So business owners care about revenue, office space, employee count, material stuff. I don't care about any of that stuff. True entrepreneur cares about creating purpose, spending time with family or friends, changing the world, And so most of the folks in the current level I'm at, it's $25K a year US. Most of the folks are true entrepreneurs. There's still a couple of business owners, but I'm just a pure entrepreneur. And I don't care about the logistical things. I just want to spend time with my family and grow a network on a global level. Now, the byproduct of that is I have 2 very successful global companies that only partner with top people on the planet and haven't done outbound sales or anything in years. But it really starts with that fundamental entrepreneurial family first, purpose first, and then everything else kind of takes care of itself. And I've learned most of that being in strategic coach over the last couple of years.
Right. So people might be wondering what 25K and 50K refer to. Can you clarify?
Yes, I will answer your 7 fact finder question with my 8 fact finder. So that's yearly dues.
Gotcha. That's
the first level of coach is 10K a year. I was glad I went through that, but there's a lot of business owners in that. And then the level I'm at now, it's mostly entrepreneurs. And then the free zone level, which again, that's 50K a year US. It's all collaboration there. It's like very high level CEOs, entrepreneurs with not necessarily bigger companies, but collaborative companies where there's no I haven't competed with anyone in years. I just collaborate with people. So that's endlessly fun for me.
And how does the 50K program, do you think, contrast with the Genius Network that, what's Joe's last name? Help me out here.
Yeah, Joe. So I am not in Genius Network yet. I'm guessing I will be eventually. I am in Abundance 360, which is Peter Diamandis's. That's also about 25K a year. Peter has written the foreword for my next book. I'm very grateful for that. But I'm not in Genius Network yet, so I don't know the answer to that fully because I'm not in it.
Gotcha.
I will say there's a lot of crossover in all of them. And again, there's no competition. It's all collaboration. It's just people working together on things and building things together. I mean, my new company, I met my partner who's in San Francisco. I'm in Chicago. I met him virtually on a Zoom call on Strategic Coach. I've only met him one time in person. We had a big launch party for the new company in Chicago over the summer. Other than that, I've never met him in person. And I strongly feel that's where a lot of, if you want to call them businesses, are headed, where you just meet someone where you have a shared value system, you want to serve the same types of partners and clients and collaborate, and then you just grow something from there. It's really exciting to be doing that.
I think that's understandable, and I think I agree with you. I'm also wearing, for those people who are not on video, my Scaling Up Coaches shirt. I pulled out the old memorabilia today, and I'm no longer active in Scaling Up Coaches, but I learned a ton from them. And what I find is that the network of coaches in Scaling Up, the network of coaches that I've met that are part of EOS, the network of people that participate in Strategic Coach, or the folks that went through Growth Coach, they shared a similar interest or value system. Just like you could say the people that go through Tony Robbins programs or Brendon Burchard programs, there's a value system in common between these people, and so it's an instant bond. And I think you find that probably in any group experience, whether it's a personal development workshop, or there's a similar mindset. And so you're really focused on this you're not even focused on the 1%. You're focused on the 0.1%.
Yeah.
So unless someone has like a 10x mentality, they're not on your radar for someone you want to work with. Is that right?
Why would they be? I mean, because that was a really good series of questions and statements there. That was really good simplification. So 0.1%, most people think that's a small number, but I'm like, nope, you don't live in abundance world like I do. So there's 8 billion people, 0.1% of 8 billion, 8 is 8 million. 8 million is a lot of people.
It's a big target market.
Well, right. And they're the ones that create everything that employs or benefits the other 99.9%. And so I'm 100% simplifier. What I've learned in 5 years of being an entrepreneur, again, zero business background. I still don't know what an S Corp is because I think it's funny to not know what that is. And I don't care what it is. Actually am going to actively try and never find out what it is. But what I've learned is that I only partner with entrepreneurs that have visionary abundance investment mindset. So visionary abundance investment. So I've simplified it. When you have all three attributes in that mindset, so because right mindset attracts right network, creates right opportunities, right?
Yep.
Right. So I haven't done outbound sales in a year. So if you have those three attributes, you're one of two types of people. One, you're running high 6-figure to 10-figure businesses, US dollars. You see your family and friends whenever you want to, and you do what you like to do and what you're good at. Or you're going to be in that first group. You're not there yet, but you will be. So there's no what do you cost or charge. There's no scarcity nonsense. There's what does an investment with you look like? Let's take action. I want to be a hero in my own story. I'm on a mission. Let's go. So it eliminates the overwhelming majority of society, but I don't care because the 0.1% are the ones that actually benefit everyone else. And the 0.1% wants to change the world, not their world, the fundamental. That's a fundamental difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur. Their world people I can't help because they're worried about costs. They're worried about bottom line. They think they have those three attributes in their mindset, but they don't. They don't have the investment mindset. They look at things as a cost. And I just don't care anyone.
So I love that. I think that's a brilliant distinction. I want to drill a little further down.
Go ahead.
Because I think people who are listening to this might say, whoa, this is really challenging my thinking. I mean, maybe they picked up Carol Dweck's book and they listened to the growth mindset book versus the fixed mindset. Well,
they're surrounded by scarcity cost mindsets. So people like me are usually aliens within their own family, community, verticals. Right. Nobody talks like this. So, I was a journalist for my whole life, surrounded by journalists who are journalists. I never understood if it bleeds, it leads. I never understood negative news. I was just an entrepreneur who happened to be a journalist. No one in my family growing up ever understood me. Mm-hmm. People in my community definitely didn't understand me. They had we live in a pretty nice area, pretty affluent. And this is the cheapest. The first question people ask here is, what do you cost or charge? They drive very nice cars. First question, what do you cost or charge? So
wrong question.
Well, that's an immediate disqualifier for being
totally.
Yeah. So I just ignore it. And, so I had to find people. That's why I have two global companies. I had to find people to understand what I was actually talking about. And I found the only people who understand what I'm talking about are in these 25, 50K a year rooms because they're the ones that are changing the world.
Yeah.
That's it.
So let's talk about where some of these people hang out. If people are listening and they're thinking like, I want to have a more investment, visionary, abundance mindset. like where should I be hanging out? I mean, what are they reading particular publications? Are they following particular individuals' feeds on social media? What are some hints that you could give them or breadcrumbs that you could leave behind that they might follow to find their own path?
Sure. So, again, I'm a simplifier into patterns. I don't know why my brain works like that, but it does. So bigger investment leads to smaller room, but the people in those rooms are making bigger impact. So bigger investment, small room, bigger impact. So I keep making bigger investments to be in smaller rooms, like 10X or Abundance 360. Currently, those are about 25K a year each. I would easily invest 50K a year each. I have been an entrepreneurs organization before. I've been in some other groups that are around 2 or 5K a year. I have found really the dividing line. I mean, in terms of where my brain is, 25K minimum a year. Otherwise, it's not. It just doesn't resonate with how I think.
I mean, it's interesting that you came up with that number. I mean, that's a starting entry level point for someone who wants to coach with me. And I don't.
Why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it?
It has to be. I mean, now Tony Robbins, I think, has like $1 million platinum group or something like that. It's very, very select.
100%. So that's a great point because, again, I've been an entrepreneur for 5 years. The first group I joined was $250 a year. I'm actually still in that group because I'm loyal, but it was never a cost. None of this I've never asked anyone, what do you cost or charge, ever. But even though being surrounded by people that always ask that, I never understood the question. But it's always been an investment, and it certainly didn't start out as a 25K a year group. It didn't start like that, but I just kept making bigger investments to be in smaller rooms where the people make bigger impact. That allows me to spend the most time, biggest investment in the smallest room, which is my family, where I can make the most impact. So it all comes back to being a dad who happens to be an entrepreneur. It all comes back to the same formula.
So let's get back to this visionary discussion. I've got a book that's sitting on my desk. It's called Rocket Fuel. I'm sure you're familiar with it.
I have it upstairs. Yeah, Gino endorsed my book.
So for those who are listening that aren't familiar with it, it's part of the EOS Entrepreneurial Operating System Traction Library. It's written by Gino Wickman and another writer I don't know. And it says the subheadline
Mark Winters, right?
Mark Winters, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the one essential combination that will get you more of what you want from your business. And so the concept of the book is that in an ideal entrepreneurial business, there's a visionary and there's an integrator. And the visionary is the type of person that you're talking about, who's not, they're an idea creator. They come up with 100 suggestions, of which only maybe 10 or 5 or 2 can be implemented. And that to be successful, and to create real rocket fuel for your business or entrepreneurial venture, you need an integrator.
100%.
So, I mean, you're out there trying to connect with all these people. Do you push them in the direction of making sure that they have someone like an integrator, a number 2, who can be, really drive the business forward and keep it on track? Because that's me. That's me. Huh?
Well, so that's a tremendous question too. The people I talk to, if they didn't have that, they wouldn't be in those groups. Wouldn't be. Okay. Someone who's a 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 quick start with a 3 follow through, and they're still a consultant or a solopreneur, that is a rocket fuel blowing up the rocket. That is okay. But talk to me is meaningless without having anything behind it. Okay. So I'm an 8671. So the book talks about this. I am the very, 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 very rare visionary who can integrate. I'm an integrating visionary. That's literally, with my Kolbe, I'm an integrating visionary. My partner for my new company, he's a 1596 Kolbe. He's a 1596. He is a visionary integrator. He's a high-level integrator with an even way bigger vision than I do. We're both unicorns. both unicorns. But my point is, I could never build my new company, but I would blow out. I'd electrocute myself if I tried to build a high price point invite-only connectivity platform. I would electrocute myself. But my partner, who's a 6 implementer, full backstage integrator with a giant vision, which is incredibly rare. But I was talking to him the other day. His name's Mark Fujiwara. If you want, you would like him. I'm like, why is this so easy? Like, this isn't, all I do is talk about it, which I'm good at. And then he's great at onboarding people. And we had another person in Strategic Coach build the platform. Like, and all I cared about was that a monkey can use it, which I can use it. So a monkey can use it because I'm a 1 implementer. But I'm like, why is this so easy? It's because we're in our zones of genius and we don't cross the streams. Just stay in our zone, stay in our lane.
I think this is a hugely important topic. I spent quite a bit of time on a podcast yesterday, a leadership conversations podcast with a podcast host in Australia. And he talked about what I think it was one of the questions was, it wasn't what's one of your go-to tools, but I got into one of my go-to tools because I find that getting people into their zones of genius is probably the single most important thing that they can do. 100%. And building a team around them that complements them.
100%.
And, we started talking about Pat Lencioni's new assessment tool, which I think he calls it Working Genius. Maybe you're familiar with it.
That one. I haven't done that.
It's like 6 different types. And I think that what's challenging is for people to figure out, and I'll speak for myself, I spent many years trying to figure out what is it that I'm great at. And I think it's because I was good at so many things.
You have a 3 follow through. That answers that. I mean, that makes perfect sense. And you're definitely higher in ideation than I am. I mean, almost every entrepreneur I talk to is. And being low in ideation is actually a great strength because I know if it's good, and then if it's not good, then I just ignore it. And here's what happens. This is what happens. So most of my day is talking to people like you, very high level thinking entrepreneurs. So they're like you, idea. And I'm like, no. And then if I hear a good one, or I should say a great one, which is really rare, once a month, maybe I hear and I'm like, oh, activate, maximize, achieve. And then I talk to people like you sometimes, and they're like, oh, I'm having this problem with this, and I got all this revenue, and I'm miserable. I'm like, oh, that's a bad idea. I'm not going to be that. So that's literally, I take all the good stuff of entrepreneur life and incorporate that, and then people that complain about this stuff that's totally meaningless to me, not going to be that. I'm not going to be that person. So it just simplifies my life.
I think it sounds something like, it almost sounds very intuitive for you.
100%.
I'm trying to figure out, so what are the secrets to asking people, what your working genius is outside of doing an assessment, using your own tools, your own intuition? How can you figure out what is it that you love to do?
Action.
We'll do often all the time.
That's my whole point. So if you actually do something, then you can learn what you're good at. So the people that overthink and never do anything, they can never learn. So that's it. And so most people overthink. They're asking all these questions and never doing anything. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, but then there's the people who do a lot of things and they're so caught up, so busy doing, busy being busy, that they confuse activity with accomplishment or achievement, and they don't really know what is it that they really do. They don't cut through to understanding that maybe their genius is in a particular area, and they try and fix all things. I see this in entrepreneurial businesses 100%. Too often.
Yeah. So bad idea. I won't be that. Right. And so a lot of entrepreneurs get into trouble because they try to be everything for everyone. Bad idea. I won't be that. My firms are 2 things for one type of person. That's it. So that's my point. I just listen to people that are all over the place. Most of them are. And then, I mean, the overwhelming majority, I guess they would have an integrator or whatever that, they have a stabilizer. They have a stabilizer. Most of them do. But
I don't know, Justin. I don't think the smaller businesses that's what I mean. I don't. Yeah. Because those are their world. I can't help them. Right. But you spend a lot of time hanging out in rooms with people in the entrepreneur organization, and a lot of them are $1 million to $5 million a year in revenue, and they're
winning the wrong game.
They're juggling so many things, and like they say, they're busy being busy, but they don't necessarily know where their strength zones are.
Yeah, so those aren't entrepreneurs; those are business owners. And so what happens is, here's what the conversations I have now. I mean, struggle's the wrong word, but I guess the struggles I hear now is these people started out as full creator entrepreneurs because they're not business owners, and then they morphed into a business owner, and they're miserable. They're just miserable. So I'm just not. I will never be that person.
Oh, what about the Michael Gerber entrepreneur, who's really a small business owner masquerading as an entrepreneur, and he was an owner by sort of default, not by design, because he just figured, I don't want to work for myself. I don't want to work for anyone else. But then they find that there's all these things to do, some of which they're good at, some of which they're not good at. And yet there's too little funds to go around in their mind. And is that because they don't have an abundance mindset and they think that they have to do it themselves so they can save money, and they save their way to success, but they don't succeed because they're saving all the way? What are your thoughts?
I mean, again, I appreciate these questions and how you're asking them, but I ignore this because I can't help those people. So
okay.
So there's 34 strength finders. There's 34. I'm 34 on empathy, dead last, and 33 in includer. Now, empathy is much different than sympathy, but at the highest level, there are no excuses, only investment. So people that there are no excuses at this level, no excuses. So you either figure it out or you make an excuse, and people that make excuses, I can't help them.
Right.
Because entrepreneur, yeah, right. So that's the answer. So again, those three attributes in their mindset, people think they might be abundant, they think they might be a visionary, but if they don't make the investment, nope, see you later. I can't help you. Is
there an assessment that you know of, that you're familiar with? I think there maybe Strategic Coach has one that measures how abundant your mindset is.
So that's a great question. If you want to put it in the show notes, my firm's website has a mindset scorecard that people can take. And it's through the Strategic Coach platform. The language is through that. People can go to my site and take it if they want, but it's really fascinating because I've had it more than a year. Hundreds of people have taken it. 2 people have gamed it. They've gamed it. Only 2 that I know of. People actually qualify or disqualify themselves with their own mindsets. It's really interesting.
Well, that is interesting. The book that Daniel Murphy wrote called Becoming a Strategic Business Owner, which was not really available on Amazon. It was sold by growth coach franchisees to their clients and to prospective customers. The whole book was about helping someone become more of a business owner and get out of being a technician. And you're talking about something different. You're talking about get out of being a business owner 100%. And being an entrepreneur, being a multiplier, like a massive 100. Job creator.
Okay, so I've done hundreds of interviews. That's one of the better thoughts / questions I've heard, because you answered the question. And remember, I was a journalist for 20 years. You don't get into that for office space, employee count, revenue. I mean, 99.9% of journalists are there for purpose. And so because of that, I had a whole foundation where I just skipped business owner stuff. I never cared about any of that stuff, ever. All my companies are just giant collaborations based on purpose, where we're serving the 0.1%. Nothing to do with revenue or employee. It has nothing to do with any of that. And so it was actually a great gift that I didn't take any business classes in college or had any business background, because I started with a fresh template and then haven't been damaged by people that are winning the wrong game. And they think it's winning the right game with all this stuff, and they think it actually matters, these material measurements, as opposed to meaningful measurements. And then they're like, oh, I don't care about any of this stuff. They think they care, and then they realize they don't. And I was talking to my sons, and my wife. My sons are 9 and 7, And my wife's a pediatrician, human. She's a human at the highest level. And she's made me kind of a human, like just barely. But I was like, at my funeral, no one's going to care that I had 50 employees or, built a 10-figure business. Like, he built a 10-figure. No.
Right.
No.
Exactly.
No. Yeah, exactly. But most business owners
measure their success by
nonsense. It's if you really think about it at a much higher level, it's complete nonsense. And I don't understand it. I've never understood it. So I just spend time with my family and build my network. And the byproduct is all this other great stuff happens.
Well, so, this show is done for disruptive successors, which principally, it's next generation entrepreneurs who are leading a family business and are trying to be a multiplier in their family business.
Yes.
As a guy who's focused on visionary investment, abundant mindset entrepreneurs, do you find many people who are running family businesses or are entrepreneurs in family businesses? What's the overlap there between being in a family business and being an abundant mindset entrepreneur?
That's a great question. So the greatest joy of my life by far in terms of entrepreneur life, there's not even a close second, is that my kids get to see that this world even exists. And I'm not talking about business owner world. I'm not talking about consultant world. I'm talking about highest level entrepreneurial, global, change the world work. Because most people have no idea this, their mom and pop restaurant or whatever. That's not this world. So then my kids can do whatever they want with it. They can do whatever they want with it. There's a really good book called Mastery by Robert Greene, New York Times bestseller. And so he interviewed all the masters. If they were alive, and then if they were dead, he did anecdotal things. So like Ben Franklin or Da Vinci or whatever. And so without exception, the ones who were dead that he wrote about, they were men, because at the time only the men worked. And so the men were children of very high performing entrepreneur dads. And then without exception, the sons learned from their entrepreneur dads, and then without exception rebelled and created their own thing. So I can't wait till my kids rebel. And what I see with the folks I talk to that have been part of family businesses is they've learned from their parents or grandparents or great grandparents. And then almost all of them have really evolved and made the company or companies more regional or global or added technology or AI to it. Those are the conversations I have. And I'm always fascinated by the ones that have been, because your family was in, multiple generations,
Yep.
I'm always fascinated talking to people like you, because you grew up in a world that very few people even understand. So that's the coolest thing about being an entrepreneur is my kids get to, they get to experience this, like, because Abundance 360 and I don't care about this at all, but most people do. At the level I'm at, 99% of the folks are running $10 million to $10 billion companies. And if I'm not in a room like that, I get bored. But so we had, I think it's David Sinclair. He's the top Harvard longevity geneticist in the world. So he was speaking about the technologies coming to allow humans to live 200, 300, 400, years, if not forever. And then my kids were just sitting in my lap watching that. And I mean, that's coming very soon. And so for my kids they were 6 and 8 at the time, to get to see that, that's a great gift, great joy in my life.
Justin, you are what I would consider to be a genius. I'm sure by IQ standards you are.
You're wrong. Can I tell you why?
I would love to know why, because then I'll share you my story.
This is incredible. We did talk about this?
No, we did not talk about this, but this is something that
I have the answer to that.
I'm going to wait. I'm going to let you give the answer, but in a moment. When I was in 8th grade, I think I got pulled into the office of the principal. I wasn't in trouble, but they were reviewing my scores. And I looked over at the IQ thing, and I think I saw 110. And I thought, oh, shoot, that's really not very good. That's just ordinary. That was a humiliating like leveling experience to my ego, because I thought, wow, I am just like above average. That's not great. That was a defining moment for me. Did you have a defining moment like that?
I really appreciate you sharing that with me. From talking to you, you act like someone with much higher IQ than that. And let me explain that, because talk is meaningless without. Genius IQ is 140 and above, 140. And 1% of the population has that, 1%. So most of my day, and although most people actually haven't taken it, but I talk to people, I'm like, oh, most of my day is talking to 150 and above is like real.
I'm sure.
Right. Okay.
I'm sure they are. And most people don't know what their IQs are because it wasn't exposed to us growing up as children.
It wasn't exposed.
We weren't supposed to know that number.
Correct. So I was thinking about this because this is how my brain works, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, I'll do that. And so I was asking my mom a couple of months ago, because she knew my IQ. I'm like, do you remember? So I'm 139. I'm 1 point below genius, but I'm actually glad because when you get above 140, those people, they have a hard time talking human. They don't, they're not human really, not really.
Right.
So my 139 is a bridge between those people and humans. I've really thought about that.
And let's tie in ADHD and people who are on the spectrum. I mean, yes. Do you think that the folks that are on the spectrum, they're considered, I'm talking about the autistic spectrum,
100%.
That, are most of those geniuses on the autistic spectrum?
Yes.
High, right.
Yeah. Well, because humans label things to explain things that they can't explain. So ADHD disorder, not a disorder. Most of the people, Strategic Coach is basically a platform for people with ADHD. That's
right. Sure. It's put order into your life.
Right. And I do not have I don't have that. I don't. Now, my wife, who again, she's a doctor, pediatrician. She thinks I have minor Asperger's, like barely on the spectrum. I would probably, I don't know, but I would agree with her.
I would too.
I do think that is a sign of genius for sure, because I don't think like.
I agree.
I don't think like regular. I don't.
No.
Very hard for me to have a human conversation because I don't know what people are complaining about, and they have no idea why I want to change the world. They just don't. That's why I have to surround myself with people who understand what I'm talking about. Otherwise, it just doesn't go very well.
Is it easier or harder for you during COVID, Zoom, era? I guess we're now into the third year, I think. And so 3 of your 5 years of entrepreneurship have been behind the camera. Is that easy or difficult for you?
Yeah. So talk is meaningless without anything to back it up. So when COVID started, at the time, I think I had about 50,000 followers on social media. I posted, this is the greatest opportunity of all time for people with the right mindset. So that's exactly what has happened. I've had record profits every single year for my first company. Launched a second company with somebody I met on Zoom. I've literally met him one time in person. Companies are far more global now because I don't have to go anywhere. I've done 2 in-person meetings since COVID started. One was the launch party for a new company. Second was I had a partner client from New Zealand fly into Chicago to visit with me. So I'm like, okay, I'll drive 20 miles to visit with him. But it's been the greatest opportunity because I'm very good at multitasking, for lack of a better term. And so I don't need to drive anywhere. I can talk to someone in a side chat on Zoom or whatever that is. And if I'm bored with whoever's talking, I can just ignore it and do something else. So I don't have to sit in a room for 5, 6, 7 hours. It's been the greatest thing ever. And I have, again, talk is meaningless without really thinking about it and taking action. I found there's 2 reasons why some people, not all, but some want to go back to in-person. I've seen there's two main reasons. One, they just can't focus at home or their office. There's just too many distractions, which I understand that. I think the second reason is actually the bigger reason is that they're miserable where they're at and they need to go somewhere to escape where they're at. And I just want to be at home with my family. So I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to spend my life. Right. So it's
I couldn't agree with you more. Love the idea that I can do my business from wherever I'm hanging out or staying, whether it's a hotel or a beach in Mexico or, wherever I am. It's great. And I do think there's
a better solution too. I mean, it's better.
I agree. I think there is some kind of magic. I think when people come together in a room.
Correct.
I used to do those kickoff retreats. They were 2 or 3 days, a strategic retreat. And I could figure out by the end of day one who wasn't going to be at the table in a year from now, because they didn't fit or share the core values of the company without even knowing what the core values were. But by the end of day 3, it was like pretty obvious. And, I don't know that people get Zoom fatigue being on sitting in a chair, being in a meeting too long. But look, we've learned how to be creative and get people up and moving every 90 minutes. And, it's hard to know whether someone's multitasking, or whether they're fully engaged. But look, that same thing could happen in a room as well. So
it's much harder in a real room to do that. My personality, where I can just kind of it's hard for me just to stare straight ahead. People who are watching this can probably tell that, but I like to just stare around.
Yeah.
And that's actually how I think better, is just by looking around. And it really helps me. It's very interesting because I have an unfocused movement, but it actually helps me focus. It's a very interesting.
Well, if you've studied neurolinguistic programming, which I was only introduced to it literally from Tony Robbins back in 1984, depending upon where you're looking, upper left, upper right, lower right, you're either going into like a feeling or a memory state, or you're ideating, you're thinking in the future, or you're looking at
holy crap.
I think that'd be
what I mean. This is how I learn in real time. I didn't know that.
This is a game changer for you. Pick up Grindler and Bander. I think I've got the name right. They're the co-authors of I can't remember what about Frogs and Princes or something, but it's the seminal book on neurolinguistic programming. And so you can tell when someone's lying to you. You can tell whether they're going into, they're making something up, or whether they're going into a past memory. It's really interesting stuff. I'm sure FBI agents who are trained to know where people are thinking, they're very trained in that kind of stuff. Useful.
Well, Chris Voss wrote the foreword for my first book. He's the top FBI. He was the top.
Right. He's the master negotiator guy with Masterclass. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So he's also in strategic coach, but that's an interest. I'm sure he did that. But that you've provided a great gift there, because I'm not intentionally trying to look away, but that's how it's
where you're comfortable.
It's where I'm comfortable. It's easier for me to think like that. It's really, and this is it's much more uncomfortable. I mean, I haven't done it in so long, but to sit in a room and go off to a little breakout and sit with 3 people, that's not comfortable for me.
Yeah. See, that's kumbaya for me. I mean, I like when people want to do that and run a meeting like that. Frankly, my biggest challenge is when I'm dealing with a client who is an entrepreneur and gets up and then, he or she shows up late. Then they get up a half hour into the meeting. Now they want to go get breakfast. And then they're distracted and a phone call's coming in. And I say, look, no phones. This is a no phone zone, no email. And that person is like a caged lion that hasn't eaten a meal in a week, and they're jumping out of their skin. It's so difficult for them. And it's hard for me to figure out, how much do I permit that? How much do I try and contain it? How do I help this person move through this? It's challenging. Any thoughts on it?
Zoom would help. Because that's me. That's not me. I can sit down. But
no, I'm sure you can.
It's I haven't had to in so long. This is just for me and a lot of the people I talk to. This is you had horse and buggy, and then you got cars. So and now flying cars, those are coming, and electric cars. So you see the better solution. But again, I think it goes back to those two reasons. I think that's what it. I think it goes back to those 2 reasons.
All right. Well, we need to wrap up. and tell us a little bit about your next book, Epic Life. Is it mostly written?
Oh, it's done. No, I wrote it. Thank you. Yeah, Peter DeMonis did the foreword. I'm very grateful for that. And then Scribe Publishing, Tucker Max is they're doing it.
Oh yeah, my publisher as well.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, they're great. Great team of people.
They do a great job.
I interviewed like 3 of the, high fact finder like you. I interviewed 3 of those different companies. 2 or 3 of them were based in Austin, and just really like Scribe a lot.
Yeah, they're pros, and you're one example. People like you understand. It's a validator, people, they like can't fathom being like Bill Gates or someone like that, but they can fathom being someone like me, where I just spend time with my family and build my network. And then, each chapter is something I've learned, one of those great ideas that, for the most part were from other people, and then a story and a chapter behind it. And then it's like, well, here's how I built 2 global companies with 0 business background and partnered with someone I've met one time in person, and then have all this global thinking and abundance. So that's, 30 steps how I did that.
Sounds good. Yeah. So closing thoughts. I know my closing thought is, one is I look at my DISC profile as an SC, and I'm a natural team builder.
Yeah.
A high SC really loves building the team, building the cohesiveness in the team. Everyone and everyone brings their different strengths. And I think
Yes.
So my closing thoughts on this is that you need to figure out what your strengths are, and I love the idea that don't be the smartest person in the room. If you're the dumbest person in the room, I think that's sort of a self-effacing thought, but why not surround yourself with people who are brilliant and smarter than you in areas that you're not so smart? And so why not take a whole lot of different assessments and assemble your team based on people who, round out the personality types, behavior styles, motivators. It's all really important, I think.
Yeah, so I'll dovetail that, because again, without actionable, what's actually happening, that's a pointless conversation. So my partner, I'm 8671 Kolbe. He is 1596. That's completely collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
I'm dead last in empathy. He is 3rd, completely collaborative, and he's competition 1, maximizer 2. So he's going to win big at the highest level, and he's 3rd in empathy. My wife's a pediatrician. She'd probably be 1st in empathy. So collaborative empathy. And then my print, unconscious motivators, I'm 8-3, and Mark, my partner, he's 3-8. Unconsciously, we're motivated by the same things. So consciously collaborative, unconsciously collaborative. That's why it works.
Great. Well, it's been a fascinating 45 minutes of time with you today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, your wisdom. How would you like people to connect with you?
Yeah, I'll 6 follow through that. If you go to my first company's website, which is brepicllc.com, brepicllc.com, you can take that mindset survey. 5 minutes. People love it. It's right on there. Just click the button.
Great. Free, or there's a cost to it?
Oh no, that's free.
Awesome. So Brepic,
you are definitely an SC. It's a free survey. That's funny.
Details. Devil's in the details.
Oh man.
Yep. All right. That's BREPIC.com.
BrepicLLC.com. BREPICLLC.com. Yep.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. All right, Justin. Thanks for being on the show. Folks, if you enjoyed this, please give us a great rating on your podcast listening app of choice. Share it with others. And as my girlfriend always says to me, go and be a genius, and go share your genius with other people.
Ooh.
Thanks for listening.
This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful, so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Thank you for joining us on the Disruptive Successor podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, review, and share with a friend who would benefit from the message. If you're interested in picking up a copy of my book, Disruptive Successor, go to disruptivesuccessor.com.